There were 1,000 guards in this prison, but they only had one prisoner locked up. But even so, there still weren't enough guards. On the first day, the prisoner dug a hole and escaped through the sewer. But that wasn't exciting enough. After the escape, he voluntarily turned himself in and demanded to be locked in a 1-meter iron prison, completely airtight. The guards thought that would prevent him from running away. But in the next moment, he disguised himself as a praying priest for the criminals and escaped once again. The guards had no choice but to chain him up. They threw him onto a small island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. He was guarded by ridiculously clever officers all alone, responsible for his meals and drinks until Lupin's death. Now Lupin finally had no way to escape. The most desperate part is that a year passed and Lupin's so-called friends didn't even think about rescuing him. Lupin's wife thought he would never get out and started dating someone else. Lupin couldn't take it. With no freedom, he would rather starve himself to death. Even if officers brought him food, even if it was gone bad, he wouldn't take a single bite. After a month, Lupin had starved to the point of becoming a skeleton and collapsed on the ground. This terrified the officers, who quickly grabbed the keys and rushed into the room to save Lupin. After all, Lupin was his lifelong adversary, but in the next moment, he stopped in his tracks. Lupin was always cunning and clever. This had to be another one of his escape schemes. Finally, Lupin died. He had starved himself to death inside the prison. And finally, the officers let his guard down and opened the prison door. But in the next moment, the officers were shocked to see that the body in front of him was gradually elongating, transforming into a flat portrait. It turned out to be Lupin's plot all along. He used the food from his hunger, strike as painted his growing hair as a brush. Every night, while the officer slept, Lupin would paint the image of his own body from the window's perspective because he knew that as long as the prisoner was dead, the officers would open the door. This artistic inspiration for an escape had actually occurred to Lupin right after he was first captured. He willingly spent a year alone with the officers on the island because the officers had always been chasing him, and he sought revenge against the officers. After finishing his story, Lupin proudly locked officers inside the prison. But in the next moment, the officers burst into laughter. Yes, he would never give up. This was the Lupin worth pursuing his entire life. Soon enough, news of Lupin's escape spread, and the officers, who had turned into a skeleton from starvation, was finally rescued.